welcome to Gunners R Us podcast, where we are positively Patreon. And that we are. And I'm going to throw this actually up on iTunes and Spotify. So, guys, if you're just listening to this on iTunes and Spotify, as you usually do, this is the kind of stuff we're doing over on Patreon. This is a slight review of Sporting, but it's mainly the preview to the Man City game this weekend. We're going to jump straight into it. Now, Sporting game, I think you have to kind of look at it as a whole. Were we the better team over two legs? I would say yes. I think 1-0 over two legs is extremely... It's obviously very low scoring, but it's extremely rare, I'd say, in the Champions League when you see kind of almost the basketball games happening across the board in the brackets. But when you look at it, I looked up the stats just a minute ago, and we pretty much got 2 XG over 2 games, and they got just under 1. And I think if you can limit anyone over 180 minutes of football to less than 1 XG, you're probably going to win a tie. And maybe that is the way in which we're going to try and approach Atletico Madrid, because Atletico is not the Atleti of past with Simone. They are a bit more of a open team that aren't necessarily the defensive unit that we kind of all know and remember. So I wonder if we will be the more... what's a good word there? More kind of stubborn, kind of awkward, make the ties awkward. And with this one with Sporting, that late Havertz goal made it so that we just didn't need to necessarily go like gung-ho, but we needed to stay in it. And I think there was actually a couple little lessons we've learned were shown in this game. And the game as a whole, it was a bit of an anomaly, because I went from being very agitated by the performance to actually being somewhat surprised and or happier, maybe. I'll explain that, because we've spoken about it on the podcast that everything kind of has happened, and you can kind of explain away everything to an extent until the Bournemouth game. The Bournemouth game was this one thing that when we needed to win, we lost. And it wasn't just losing. You can lose in title races. You can lose in football. It's football. It's sport. It's the manner of it. It was a lack of effort, a lack of ideas. There was no intensity. And I just thought that isn't good enough. And I know that they said they had conversations. There was a social media blackout, all these kind of things. But we've seen this before, and sometimes you still kind of get the same thing. And obviously I tune in on Wednesday, and you see the Tifo go up. Interesting choice of players. I understand that Trossard was the top because of the message they were trying to get across. But you see the Tifo and you think, God, yeah, it is actually a really big game, isn't it? And I think we've been somewhat gaslit as Arsenal fans into thinking these aren't big games. And I think that that's had a detrimental effect on the fan base, because this is huge. A quarterfinal. When Arteta took over, I would have bitten your hand off to get a quarterfinal in the Europa Cup. Honestly, like, that is the honest truth. Is where we were as a club was, nose and eyes pressed up against the window, looking in, going, "Oh, I'd love it to even be in the conversation of being in the Champions League, let alone getting to the knockouts, let alone making back-to-back semi-finals." So we forget how big a game this was, but maybe because it was Sporting, no, obviously disrespect there, but maybe because of the size of Sporting compared to maybe Real Madrid in the quarterfinals last year, maybe the fact that the league is on a bit of a wobble, whereas last year we just weren't in a title race, so we all kind of were just looking forward to the Champions League. So maybe our attentions were kind of more heightened that way. Maybe it was because we scored late and, we had a win. Maybe it was just that Bournemouth game 3 days prior. But something is making us as Arsenal fans, and I felt it too, not feel like it's a huge deal. And it really is. And that's what I'm kind of wanting to remind everyone is a quarterfinal is massive. And we'll get to the 0-0 because I think, like I said, I went through a variety of emotions during it. 0-0 was actually a good result. And people won't like that. And some people are going to roll their eyes at that. We didn't need to. And I said that in a group chat that is very anti-Arsenal. I didn't say that, sorry. They just said, how's the game? Because obviously no one was watching that game. Everyone watched the other game, which seemed like an unbelievable game. And I said, not much really happening, which is a little bit disappointing. And their response as anti-Arsenal fans was, well, you don't have to do anything. And I was like, oh, yeah, no, you're right. And it's almost like you've kind of been told something enough that you kind of start to believe something else. And again, we all want to see good performances. But sometimes the Champions League is a different kettle of fish to the league, to anything else. It's the biggest club competition in the world. And you've got to just find your way through it sometimes. And sometimes you're not in form. When you think about it, we beat Bayern Munich earlier on in this one. We beat Atletico 4-0. These games, if we go against Atletico and then Bayern, we've already played our semis and finals opposition if we can get through. But those games will be nothing like they were earlier in the season. The intensity is going to be different. Game plans are going to be different. So much can change. And that's what I mean by you kind of just got to get through. And I saw someone talk about this recently about how the English sides did so well in the group, but in the league table, and then struggled with the knockouts. And it is true that, the English teams were cruising, and then they've all kind of got thrown out. And when you look at who they get thrown out against, PSG, who are actively moving games prior to Champions League games to help them from the French, I would say French FA, but I don't know if it's French FA. But you know what I mean, the French governing body have helped them and moved their game so they can have rest. When you look at Bayern Munich, they rotated 9 out of their 11 players this past weekend and still won 50-0, whatever they do over there. When you look at Atletico even, the board and Simone had a conversation that he is going to rest every single player in the league because they are kind of set where they are in the league so that they can just concentrate on the Champions League. So, for example, when we play them next, we're going to be in a horrific title race, playing every 3 days, knackered, against a team who have probably had 7 days rest, and all their hopes lay on this. So you start to realise that maybe, we're fighting against something else more than just this. And that's why the English teams have struggled once we got to knockout, because Chelsea are fighting for top 4. It's so important. As a club, my word, it is so important for them to make top 4. Liverpool, injuries, small squad, really need to get top 4. Also, panicking. Every 3 days, need to win a game, need to get that top 4, need Champions League football so they can fill out that squad with world-class players. And when you look at even Tottenham, they're in a relegation battle. When you look at us, we're in a title race. Every game's, the semi-finals, we're going to be sandwiched between games we desperately need to win and have to play our best team. The others aren't going to be doing the same. Bayern Munich will win their league and rotate their squad. PSG will probably get their games moved so they don't have to worry about it, and they'll still win their league. And then obviously Atletico are resting their whole team for everything that isn't the Champions League now. So that is something else, You have to quantify that, and that is why it's so important when you can kind of get these kind of moments where you get through a quarterfinal. And as for a game, I really hated seeing, and again, I really want to reiterate that I really like Martinelli, Madueke and Gyökeres, and I said this and I until I was blue in the face the other day, that especially when it was Havertz as the 10, I think that is the 100% way of winding up a crowd. And I felt that was going to come, and it did. But that front three, generally, with whoever's behind it, is probably not good enough, in my opinion. I would say, in a perfect world where everyone was fit, I would say that Arteta, all 3 of them, are the backup to 3 other players. And I truly mean that. And I think they're too similar that you can pepper a Gyökeres in. And as you've done all season, he's our top goal scorer. He's been unbelievable. As much as critique as he's taken. There's individual things that when I talk about Arsenal and how we feel and the critique, and he's got 18 goals in all comps. That's better than what most people actually anticipated. But everyone's like, yeah, but he's rubbish. Okay, but we've never also been top at this point in the league, and with 6-point lead and in back-to-back semi-finals. Is he not something to do with that, Saka's been rotten. Yeah, he's been away a lot, but also, has he not helped us get to this point? Huge goals against like Brighton, some of the assists he's got. So we're kind of being made to believe that even the players that are good are bad. And even though we're good, like I said the other day, they'll tell us in one moment that we're one of the worst teams in Premier League history, but also in the other, we should have won the quad. It's very confusing, and we've kind of been made to, it's almost affected how we enjoy it, For years we've been told we can't celebrate goals, we can't celebrate big wins, we can't over-celebrate anything. We have to just, button up and be careful and all that. and only allowed to celebrate once we win something. And now we're close to winning something potentially. It's like, oh yeah, but we're not allowed to celebrate until then, so we have to wait. And all this noise just adds to the pressure that the team are under, and the fans even, because I feel pressure. But that front three started Madueke, Martinelli, and Gyökeres. We had Eza back in behind, which was really nice. Zubimendi, I think they had made a tactical change. I think Rice played the 6 and Zubimendi played as the 8, and you saw him in that left 8 channel a lot. And got into the box and potentially had most touches in the opponent's box in that first half, which is a really different way of kind of utilising Zubimendi. And he ended up with the man of the match. You see the players interact with him afterwards. There is definitely something going on with him. And I know that when he joined, he had kind of avoided leaving home for so long, simply because he said he'd be homesick and he'd struggle to be away from his family. I do wonder if maybe he's got to that point of the year where it's too much. And there is an inkling in me that he might go, I have to go back. I don't know if I can do what I wanted to try. And he might have loved it as far as wanting to potentially win the Premier League and Champions League, and he's not going to do that at his past club. But I wonder if he ends up going back there. I really do. And I wonder if it's more personal than what people are kind of realising. But Rice and Zubimendi much better in this game, and kind of maybe that switch around was better. And it does allow you that ability that Rice will play 90 minutes in the 6, and that left 8 could become someone else in the squad, because I think we're probably more blessed with 8s than we are 6s at the minute that are definitely going to be trusted. As for the back 4, it's kind of what I said we should have done the weekend, which was kind of 4 centre backs. Hincapié and Mosquera taking the fullback roles, and then Reyes, Saliba, and Gabriel. So half and half, I was happy, but I knew that front three was going to frustrate. I think we started really well. Then the game kind of went into a lull until about half time. Second half, first 15 minutes, I thought, oh, we haven't got a grip here. And what was frustrating me is I just felt like the intensity was down. And I thought, oh, if ever we were going to see a turnaround in intensity, wasn't this the one? But then I have to remember that these guys are hugely highly paid athletes that understand cup football and things that we don't, and think they can't go, like they couldn't go recklessly, take the handbrake off and just go for it, just to appease us, because that could have cost us a Champions League semi-final. And then, as much as we don't realise and not taking in how amazing it is that we're in another semi-final, I'm sure we'd be getting ripped apart right now if we had gone out. So they have to get the job done while trying to appease us, and sometimes they can't appease us, but they are quietly with winning. But the last 30 minutes, actually not even last 30 minutes, about 55 minutes, we make a sub. It was Gyökeres off, who he wasn't having a great game, I must admit. The 2 games against Sporting haven't been one of his better outings, but we made Havertz to come on up front, which is what I've been wanting to see with Eza behind. And then Madueke gets injured shortly after, and Dauman comes on. And then obviously Trossard comes on for Martinelli. And my word, that difference, I don't know how to explain it, because I'm not someone who, everyone at the start of the season or mid-season was saying, oh, I'd love to have Havertz up front and, Trossard and Saka and Odegaard back in behind. And you think, I know what you mean, because we do play nicer football, but haven't we also watched 2 years of that team trying to win the league and struggling? And then the year that we kind of brought in Eza and Gyökeres to play a lot of the games, Madueke's had to play a lot more than he expected, probably. We're in a better position than we have been under having been with the other guys. So you kind of go, we don't want to revert back to the old, but we are obviously in a moment now where I feel like it's got too bad as far as attacking, that maybe we need to go back to old trusty just to get us over the line. But I was in this game going, I just want to see some players that retain the ball, not runners. I don't want 3 attackers running away from the ball who aren't necessarily the strongest technical players. They're going to run the ball out. They're going to misplace passes, these kind of things. And Eza's also a high chance creation type of midfielder. So he's someone who is also going to lose the ball a lot. Whereas Odegaard is someone who's going to keep the ball a lot and help the team a lot, but maybe not necessarily make that decisive pass every time. Whereas Eza's going to shoot, he's going to cross, he's going to try the pass, he's going to lose the ball multiple times, he's going to keep trying. So the mixture of the 4 of them, I thought, oof, this could frustrate. And just seeing those technical players on it, and there was a moment, it was almost like an epiphany. Like, Ray just went long, and Havertz just knocked it down, and Eza had a shot, and I thought, well, would you look at that? One pass, one header, shot. It isn't as you don't need to make 50 passes in a horseshoe shape. You can just go that far. And when you've got players like Havertz who can direct that down, and Eze who's going to drift in there from midfield, that's that simple. And and this is when I started to get excited, because I was thinking ahead to City, and I was thinking, before those players came on, you started to think, oh, this team against City is going to get torn apart. It really is with these front three. And then you start to see these guys, and we started to retain the ball. And beyond 60 minutes, Sporting Lisbon did not have a shot on target. And what I really loved seeing was we didn't go into a shape. We didn't drop. This has happened all season, even when we were having great spells. When it hit about 70 minutes, if we were up by a goal or two, it happened at Wolves away when we lost a 2-0 lead. We just get into shape and go, all right, we'll defend it out then. And we ask for that pressure. On this one, and Arteta was obviously big on it, because he was running down the touchline, throwing the ball to people's hands to take the throw quick. And this was on like 80 minutes. We were winning the tie. We didn't just let them have the ball and go, all right, well, shut up shop. We were trying to score throughout that game. And the best form of defence is attack sometimes. And it was that. Like we were going forward. We were moving the ball. We were retaining it. Jesus came on. He actually had a really good cameo. He was holding that ball and, quick passes. And we haven't seen that enough. And almost sudden I went, oh, this team could do a number on City. This could get something out of City. And it was just good to see. They didn't end up scoring. I mean, Jesus had an unbelievable bit of skill, hit the side netting. I think Trossard hit the post. A couple others. And then right at the end, obviously, Sporting had that long throw, and it squeaked loose near post, just outside netting, which was horrible to see. But either way, we got it over the line, 0-0, and 1-0 over 2 legs. And we get Atletico in the semi-finals, which I think is going to be nice in a way. Obviously, stubborn in others. It'd be nicer that it's not sandwiched between Man City's game. This one's been, Do I think Arteta just wanted to start Havertz, Trossard and Dalman, for example, up front? Yeah. Did he also just have his eye on City and go, but could those three just get me over the line against Sporting so these guys can be fully rested for City? I think that is where his head was at. And he managed it, and that's good management, when you can kind of keep not necessarily the team you think's the best and change it. And I'm really looking forward to the City game. I see us playing Reyes, Saliba, Gabriel. I think we might see Hincapié and Mosquera again. If Calafiori's fit, I'd love to see Calafiori. If Timber's fit, I'd love to see Timber. As of today, Odegaard, Timber and Calafiori are on the potential list. Saka and Moreno are ruled out. Madueke might make it. Unfortunately, everyone out there right now, that alarm bells are ringing saying Dalman's going to get a start. Unfortunately, I think you're going to see Martinelli on the right and Trossard on the left, either side of Havertz. Don't necessarily hate it. You sometimes think that surely it can't be that difficult to play different wings. And when you see Madueke on the left, you realise, oh, no, he should only play on the right. And when you see Martinelli on the right, sometimes you go, yeah, he should only play on the left. Martinelli less so than Madueke. I think Martinelli does a good job. And the key to this game, I think, is O'Reilly. And if he's playing, I know he had a little hamstring injury last week, but Martinelli actually tracking the runners. When you think of the cup final, no matter what anyone thinks of it, it wasn't good. But for 35 minutes, we were the better team. Then they went into that 4-2-4 shape, and we couldn't figure it out. But they never created anything until our goalie threw it in his own net. And in the 3-4 minutes, when you're most vulnerable, we conceded again. And they were both from Nico O'Reilly making late runs into the box, and Saka and that side not tracking it. I'll tell you one thing Martinelli's going to do. He might run it out of play a lot, but he's going to track his man. That is the one thing we can guarantee. He's been coached all his attackingness out, but he's almost a fullback at this point. He'll track that man, and I think that is, and you've seen it since then. City kind of, when they're struggling to break people open, which they've struggled against West Ham, against Forest at times. Not so much since, but even at Chelsea game in that first half, a little bit tough. Nico O'Reilly's someone who opens up a lot of these games, and they just get an extra man in. You saw this with Barcelona's Pep back in the day when you'd see, I want to say, Alba. It's Alaba. Jordi Alba. One's Madrid, one's Barcelona. They're so similar names. But, and Dani Alves, for example, would just appear and you go, oh, of course, there's an extra man. They've made a run from somewhere. And you're starting to see it with Nico O'Reilly, and he's going to be a real awkward one because we need to keep that stemmed massively. But I started to look at that team and I thought, yeah, I think we are going to If I had to guess, I think it's going to be Martinelli, Trossard, and Havertz. I think it'll be Eza, Zubimendi, and Rice. Uh, I think it'll be Hincapié and Mosquera. I don't think it'll be Ben White, but hey, it could be one of the other. Timber, it would be very good, but again, these guys are coming off of injuries, so there's no way they can necessarily put in a whole game. And the last thing we want to do is in a tight game at 70 minutes starting to rotate fullbacks and wingers, and do you know what I mean, and really upset kind of the system we have. So it's going to be awkward. I think Dalman's going to feature quite heavily, but I think there's a chance he could feature in the 10 role if Eza gets tired or if Eza has to go to the left and things like that. I think the original role of Gyökeres was always this, to come on 60, 65 minutes of these types of games when, break open a tight game or run at tired legs or win us a game. And if you actually look back at a lot of his goals this year, a lot of his goals have come in clusters, and they've come in clusters off the bench, which is, I think, where he'd be key for us. And I think you'll see him key next year for us in those positions. And I do think we might bring in Julian Alvarez, and I think his comments in his press conference this week really back up the fact that maybe he's in talks with us in some capacity, because he was very high on the way in which we play in Mikel Arteta. So, but an unbelievable player, but someone who could probably fit into that kind of group of guys that attack. I don't know what the key would be, because I'm sure naturally Pep's going to try and do that 4-2-4 thing, and we saw Bournemouth hit us with it, and we really struggled again. And when you watch Liverpool, we're the only team that do quite a good job at kind of breaking that 4-2-4. It's when the fullbacks jump into the midfield and kind of come in at an angle, and you can kind of lift it into that midfield and overrun it and get them turned. Calafiori, I don't think there's a better player in the league that could be good at that. Is Calafiori. Timber as well, I would say, but Ben White even. So I wonder if we might see Ben White in the sense of just trying to break that. But I also think Pep is one of these guys, you just don't know what he's going to do. So there's a high chance that we think we're going to get a 4-2-4 press and he just doesn't do it. So we're going to have to be open for everything. I think they need plans for both or anything that they're going to be thrown at. I must admit, everything in me assumes I've reverted to old Arsenal, and I've assumed this is a 4-0 loss. I keep forgetting it is a very winnable game. If we had done this when we went against the Carabao Cup, I wasn't overly confident we were going to win it or anything, but I wasn't scared of them. And even after 30 minutes, I said, we're better than them. We're finally better than them. And for a team that are 20% of the wages that City are on, I'm pretty chuffed with that. But then the way the game ended, I thought, oof. But with City, they've been tailing off some games and kind of seeing out games a bit late. And kind of becoming quite susceptible to conceding without necessarily conceding. That Liverpool game, they gave away a penalty. They gave away 3 or 4 very good chances. Obviously, West Ham had a couple of chances right at the end of that 1-1. Forest got back into it late on. Not necessarily Chelsea, but they've just been kind of open. So they're not a team that are kind of like been destroying 90 minutes. So I wonder if it's kind of stay in that game, even if they are 1-up. If at 70 minutes we can kind of get a spell, because in the Carabao Cup, we hit the crossbar in the post in that time, and we weren't playing well that day, and we still managed to get 2 giant chances that we just didn't quite put away. So it's a very winnable game. And I look in the Opta computer kind of did if so-and-so wins this game, what's the percentage of them winning the league? And I think it had, if Arsenal win the game, they had a 98% chance of winning the league, and City 2%, which I think is massively high, because so much can happen in 5 games after this. A draw had Arsenal, I think it was 75% winning it to 25. And then here's the interesting one. A City win, for me, that puts it at, this is my feeling, maybe 65 to 35 to City, because of just their history, the way they do things, and it'll be in their hands, because even if we all win out after that game, come down to goal difference, and there's no doubt in my mind they're going to outscore us in this end bit, because we're really struggling in front of goal. So I thought that it was actually 65% Arsenal still on the Opta, and I know it's because they know they got to go to Everton. They got a game in hand against Palace. I know they've also got there was one more toughie. Can't think of it off the top of my head, but we also have Newcastle, for example. So I don't know why it's so high on us. But it did also, is how fickle football is. It instantly gave me a little bit of reassurance that it's not just lose and it's fatal. I think it's close, but I don't think it's fatal, which is a nicer feeling, just because it doesn't feel like we're going to lose everything on Sunday, which can kind of lower that stress level. Because if someone offered me a 0-0 right now, I would heavily take it. Would I love to win? Yes. I just don't know if we recover if we get beaten badly. That's the worry I have. A 2 or 3 or 4-0 loss. I think their heads are gone. And that could have, obviously huge implications in that run in, but also into the Champions League and things like that. And you just think, I don't think we can afford to do it. But we've had such a Jekyll and Hyde in the style of play. I don't know what we're going to get. I don't know if we're going to look good attacking. I just watched a clip of Madueke's debut against Forest early in the season. The speed we're moving that ball around. I just haven't seen it in the final third. And I just thought, God, that's been months since I feel like we've seen that. It's really fallen off at the wrong time. If there's any time to kind of figure it out, I think it's this weekend. We got to be brave. I think that's it. Because when you look at someone like Forest in a relegation battle, they didn't just put 10. They didn't put 11 men behind the ball and just go, all right, we're losing 1-0 or 2-0 or whatever it is, and it's a shame. But hey, we'll live to fight another day. They went and got after them. And as soon as they got forward, they got goals. They are susceptible to conceding. We need to be brave. We need to trust ourselves. We need to get ahead, and we also need technical players available. So look for those Havertz, Trossards, Ezers in the team. But it's going to be a lot of work to get through. And the more I talk about it, the more nervous I get, naturally. But hopefully you've enjoyed this. It's kind of a short one. I just put the baby to bed, and I'm kind of in it. I'm very tired. I'm quite cold. So I'm going to get some sleep. But if you enjoyed this and you're on iTunes and Spotify, this is what we do over on the Patreon. We do 3 or 4 of these a week, kind of review, preview, all these kind of things before games, just as an add-on to the Monday and Wednesday you already get for free over on iTunes and Spotify. So if you enjoy, click that link. If not, hey, we'll see you on Monday when so much could have changed. I'm sure I'm going to have a lot to talk about on Monday, so I look forward to seeing you then. Bye-bye.